Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another Roscoe's recap, and this viewing party was for RuPaul's Drag Race Season 17 Episode 11. And the guests this week were Angeria and Cheryl. Today we're going to be talking about Arrietty responds to the backlash that she got due to her mirror message about Onya. Angeria says that it was, quote, a cop-out what the queens did in this week's episode. And Cheryl explains the controversy which led to her changing her drag name. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. But before we dive in, I want to dive into the tasty sponsor of today's video, HelloFresh. I know you all love Drag Race tea, but what about adding some real breakfast to your tea? Because breakfast is the most important meal of the day, HelloFresh is giving all subscribers free breakfast for life. That means you'll enjoy a totally free breakfast item with every single HelloFresh delivery. What I love about meal boxes is that they take all the guesswork out of meal times. They deliver everything you need in a box right to your front door with full recipe cards. So all you have to do is follow the simple recipe instructions and you'll discover a whole new world of delicious recipes. HelloFresh's biggest ever dinner menu has over 50 plus options to choose from, which cater to many dietary requirements and lifestyles, such as fit and wholesome, family friendly, quick and easy, vegetarian, and more. The subscription is also totally flexible and can be adjusted to suit your personal schedule, and you can even pause or skip boxes if needed. Click the link in the caption or use my code and get 10 free meals plus free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while subscription is active if you're in the US. Outside the US, the local discount will apply. And thank you again to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Okay, so they started off with host Naysha Lopez asking Angeria and Cheryl if they're watching season 17. And Cheryl joked that Angeria would watch Antarctica versus the World if it was on, because Angeria watches every season. And Angeria agreed and said she watches every single season of RuPaul's Drag Race. Naysha then said a little birdie had told her that Angeria is the guest on the pit stop for this week, and Angeria said yes. So Angeria said she's already watched this episode, but let's pretend that she hasn't and she's not going to give away any spoilers. They then talked about the beginning of this week's episode when the queens came back into the workroom and read Arrietty's mirror message where she had said that Onya's breath stinks and she needs to brush her teeth. Onya was upset about this, and in a confessional, we saw that Jules said that Onya had confided in her and a few other queens that Onya has a condition where she has bad breath, and she's really self-conscious about it. So she got upset that Arrietty would say that about her, and she teared up in the episode. At Roscoe's they discussed this, and Naysha asked whether they thought this was drag reading or was it just nasty. Cheryl said, in her opinion, with what Arrietty said, you can tell that it's someone's insecurity and it's not just a generic read about someone, it was, quote, mean, nasty and malicious. Cheryl also said that leaving this sort of nasty mirror message will leave a lasting impression for the rest of your drag career, and that's what you'll be remembered for. Also, something interesting I saw outside of Roscoe's is that on the press conference podcast for this week, the guest was Bombay from Canada's Drag Race Season 3. And they were talking about Arrietty's mirror message, and Bombay said that on Canada's Drag Race, the producers ask you what you're going to write for the mirror message to make sure that it's okay, and that a producer should have stepped in and told Arrietty not to write something like that.
This is so weird because on Canada's Drag Race, when you're writing your message, before you write your message, the story producers is like, what do you want to do? How do you want to be remembered? So they kind of make sure your message is a little bit more, it's less raw and just more like, because like, if this is the last thing you want to say, why would you make this about another person, let alone about something so malicious? It just paints in such a bad light. A producer should have stepped in and said, babe, you don't want to be remembered like this.
And I'll link to the full episode of Press Conference in the description. But back to Roscoe's, and the other host Caramel said that she feels as though Arrietty's mirror message shows that Arrietty doesn't know how to, quote, handle losing with grace, and that she cracked under pressure and took it out on the wrong person. Naisha said we're all entitled to our feelings, as she feels that it was, quote, nasty, but she's giving Arrietty a bit of grace, only because, quote, the B word is immature, and she needs to, quote, grow up. Naisha continued and said, we all say stupid things and it's a high pressure situation and your emotions are all over the place, which is why Naisha is giving Arrietty a little bit of grace. And Arrietty probably wrote that thinking she was reading Onya, but it was more than that. Angeria said she could respect it as a read if it wasn't something that Onya had specifically said was one of her insecurities. But because Arrietty did bring it up in the mirror message, it became drama, which meant that they did then have to talk about it on camera, and now Onya has to carry that for the rest of her career. Angeria then said that Onya takes everything, quote, like a champ. She takes everything with an effing charm, and that's why Onya is Angeria's winner, and everyone clapped and cheered for Onya. Also, I saw some tea about this situation outside of Roscoe's, which I wanted to mention. So, when the preview came out for this week's episode, and everyone saw that Onya was upset by Arrietty's mirror message, as you can imagine, people on social media then started sending support to Onya, but they also sent a lot of criticism and hate towards Arrietty. For example, Candy Muse retweeted a video clip of that moment when Onya was upset, and Candy said, quote, "Ooh, what a nasty C word." Arrietty then responded to the backlash, and she tweeted saying, "Onya and I are Gucci. We've already had our talk in person and hashed it out. I love Onya, period." Someone replied to Arrietty's tweet and basically said that they're glad that she and Onya are okay now, but they hope Arrietty never makes fun of someone's condition in the future, because that's, quote, effed up, and there's a line between being shady and just mean. Arrietty then responded to that person and said, "I genuinely never knew about her condition, she never told me. Whether y'all believe me or not, I wouldn't write something like that if she opened up to me about it." In the comments, some people supported Arrietty and said it was just a bad mistake and they're glad that they're both okay now. However, a lot of people said they didn't believe Arrietty and that she was lying and questioned why Onya would have told some of the queens but not Arrietty. There was also another comment to Arrietty's tweet which said, "We could care less about y'all being good now, we on yo ass." Lana Geray replied to this person and said, "God damn, y'all are ruthless this season, Jesus." The person replied back to Lana and said they also ride hard for Lana as well. But Lana replied saying, "And I appreciate it, please ride hard for all of us though. Drag Race isn't easy and this fandom makes the experience 10 times harder. Our cast all loves each other and let's all remember it's a TV show. We all are human at the end of the day, like all of you too." A different Twitter user then posted saying, "Tip Onya instead of sending hate to Arrietty." In the comments, someone tagged Onya and asked what her Cash App and Venmo were. Onya then retweeted this saying what her handle was for both platforms, and some people took this to mean that Onya was sort of agreeing that you should not send hate to Arrietty and you should send tips to Onya instead, implying that her and Arrietty are okay now. Also, on top of this, I saw that the remaining 6 queens from season 17 did an interview with Entertainment Weekly recently. Within that interview, Lana said that Arrietty is, quote, a sweetheart, and she probably thought that it was a joke, but it just wasn't funny, and she never meant to intentionally hurt Onya. Onya herself said that she, quote, forgave Arrietty right after the incident happened, even before they had had a chance to discuss it after filming, but she says seeing it still stung, and, quote, watching it on the show, I had to relive what I felt in real time and it wasn't fun. However, Onya said the fans had her back and she got well over $1,000 in tips from the fans. And Onya ended by saying, quote, I forgive Arrietty, she's a friend and more importantly a sister, and life moves on. And I just thought this was interesting context to hear that apparently Arrietty didn't know about Onya's condition, and more importantly, Onya has said that she has forgiven Arrietty and they seem to be okay. So please make sure you don't send hate to anyone, because it's really not nice and the queens can resolve these kind of situations for themselves. But back to Roscoe's, Naisha said she doesn't think that this situation is going to last because people aren't going to go to Onya and repeat what Arrietty said because they know that it's a real insecurity of Onya's. Caramel said that Onya and Arrietty have been working with each other since the show, and they even appeared at Roscoe's together a few weeks ago, so it's probably all fine. They moved on and talked about this week's challenge, which was an acting challenge, and the other host, Batty Davis, said they seem to be doing a lot of sewing and acting challenges this season. Naisha said she had seen something online and she wanted to get everyone's opinion on it, which was that someone posted saying something like, "I'm so sick of the comedy queens being able to wear crap on the runway, but the fashion girlies don't get grace when they're not funny," and Naisha asked if the others agreed with that or not. Angeria said no, she doesn't agree, because we all know that for whatever reason, the runways on Drag Race do not matter as much as the challenges matter, and in Angeria's opinion, it's probably something like the challenge is 75% and the runway is 25%. And Angeria doesn't know why that's the case, but we all know that it is the case, so why expect anything else? And if you do badly in the challenge and then lean on your runway to save you, that's, quote, probably not a great idea. Naisha said though that what that person who posted that was referring to was the grace that the queens get shown. And if a fashion queen isn't funny, they get sent home, but a comedy queen can wear something crappy on the runway, but because they're funny, they get away with it. Cheryl joked that the runway does matter sometimes because on Canada vs. the World, Cheryl said, quote, "I lost a challenge I should have won because of a runway." Angeria then said that in her observation, it seems to matter more when you're near the top rather than the bottom. So if you were great in the challenge but your runway was not so great, you'll probably still be okay. But if you were bad in the challenge, even if you have the best runway outfit in the world, it might not save you. They then had a question for Cheryl, which was, did she feel like she was robbed on Canada vs. the World? Cheryl said she doesn't feel like she was robbed as such because she was just so, quote, over the moon to finally get a chance to go on a season of Drag Race and showcase herself and what she can deliver and have a good time. And her mindset was that when you get there, leave everything at the door and just say, quote, F it, even if you go home first because it's just a laugh. I think what Cheryl is maybe referring to is that, as we know, she previously competed on Drag Race UK Season 1 and then later was on UK vs. the World, and she went home second. And I remembered that Cheryl had once done an interview with Joseph Shepherd where she basically said she did not have a good time on UK vs. the World because she was really excited to go back and show everyone what she can do, and she'd invested so much in the season, and then she got eliminated so early. But on top of that, the day after her elimination on UK vs. the World, she found out that her grandmother had died. But because this was during COVID and lockdown times, if Cheryl had left the set, she wouldn't be able to come back for the finale or the promo. So Cheryl decided to stay on set, and her parents agreed with that decision because there was nothing they could do anyway because of the lockdown, but that seemed to add to Cheryl's negative experience. And I just remembered this when I was watching Roscoe's, and I thought this would be interesting context to add. You should go and watch the full interview that Joseph did with Cheryl because it was really interesting, and I'll link to it in the description. But back to Roscoe's, and Angeria said she felt like Cheryl deserved at least one win on Canada vs. the World because, quote, Cheryl really did her big one that season, and everyone clapped for Cheryl. Cheryl then joked that she can't even say that she's the first queen to compete on 3 seasons of Drag Race and never win anything, because Pandora Box already holds that title, and everyone laughed. They moved on to the challenge for this week, and Angeria said that Jules had a really big task because she had that monologue based on Tiffany New York Pollard talking about Gemma Collins. And that's a tough role because we all know that monologue, and so many queens use it in their shows. Naisha then said that production was, quote, shady because they put Jules at the end of the filming and she had to apparently wait for 4 hours. And then she said that they would say that she had so much time to memorize and then do the most. Caramel asked from Naisha and the other queens' experiences on the show, was it really hours that Jules would have been waiting? Cheryl said it is a long time, and Angeria said, quote, it's all day. Naisha said it depends, and that on season 8, they did the Roscoe's Empire acting challenge, and she said they kept doing it, quote, over and over and over again. They moved on, and there was another question for Cheryl, which was why she dropped the whole part of her name, because she now goes by just Cheryl, whereas previously she used to go by Cheryl Hole. Cheryl explained that the reason she dropped the whole part of her name was because of the backlash that she got after she went on the TV show Celebrity MasterChef in the UK, and people complained that her last name was offensive and not appropriate for TV. Just to give some context in case you don't know, back in August 2023, Cheryl appeared on the celebrity version of the cooking show MasterChef. But before Cheryl appeared on the show, she did an interview where she spoke about the hate that the LGBT+ community faces in the UK today. And for example, shortly before she was on MasterChef, there had been a homophobic attack outside of a nightclub in London where 2 men were stabbed, and although they were injured, they luckily survived. A man was later arrested in connection with this homophobic attack, but I'm not sure there have been any updates since then. But this attack was part of a worrying trend of an increase in violence against the LGBT+ community, both within the UK but also the world in general. And in Cheryl's interview before MasterChef, she had also mentioned TERFs, which stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminists. Some people consider the word TERF to be a slur against people who have gender-critical views, and several people criticise Cheryl for using this term. However, it should be noted that several of these people, and some of them come from the more conservative end of the political spectrum, also said that they felt that a drag queen should not be on MasterChef in general because it's a family show, and in their opinion, drag is, quote, not family friendly in any circumstances. Some people even said that drag queens are mocking women and that it's a form of, quote, woman face, likening it to something like blackface. Cheryl apparently received a huge amount of abuse as a result of being on MasterChef, and she tweeted afterwards saying, "All I will say is, people clearly don't understand the art form of drag and its celebration of women. Women shaped me into the person I am today, either through music, their words of wisdom, or support. In no way do we mock women at all, so to throw that argument at me is in vain. People can continue to hurl abuse at me, liken my work to, quote, woman face, but at the end of the day, this has all stemmed from me speaking up and using my platform on the hate that is directed to our community, and you've proved everyone right. Please enjoy tonight's episode. Remember, it's a light-hearted entertainment cooking show. I'm not doing anything other than using a few pots and pans and an oven. I'll see you all on the other side." And back to Roscoe's, Cheryl explained that a big part of the criticism against her was that people thought that her last name being Hole was offensive and that it was misogynistic. Cheryl explained that the whole experience left a, quote, sour taste in her mouth because it was supposed to just be a fun TV show. So Cheryl decided to just drop the whole part from her name because then if people have a problem with her, it's because they actually have a problem with drag in general and they can't use her name as an excuse. So now she just goes by Cheryl or Cheryl the Queen. However, she joked that she'll always be Cheryl Hole to those who love and appreciate what she does, and people clapped and cheered for Cheryl. They moved on and watched the final edit of the acting challenge for this week, and Angeria said that she had never heard of Truman Capote before she was on the pit stop for this episode, but since then she's watched the new show based on him, which is a Ryan Murphy show called Feud Capote vs. the Swans. And Angeria said since she watched the show, the acting challenge makes a lot more sense. Caramel then said that everyone in the final edit looked good, so it's not clear who's going to be in the bottom. Naisha said she knows who's going to be in the bottom, and when everyone asked who, she said Ross Matthews, and everyone laughed. Naisha then said, quote, B-word, the second that mother effer came out, I'm not buying it. They then did an impression of the voice Ross Matthews did during the acting challenge, but Caramel said that that is sort of how Truman Capote sounds, so Ross did not exactly do it right, but he was trying. They then talked about a moment later in the episode where they showed a childhood photo of Lana when she was talking about her past, and Naisha said that she had said to everyone when that moment happened that Lana must be going home because the baby photos were coming out. Angeria joked and said, quote, "Don't start talking about your childhood trauma, you're going home." Cheryl then joked that when you're talking about your childhood trauma, the producers are under the desk telling you to talk about it more. Cheryl then said that speaking of production, she mentioned the rumour that Jiggly Caliente apparently got a note under her door on season 4, which was a checkout letter from the hotel, which apparently happened before the lip sync even happened, implying that Jiggly's elimination was predetermined. And I have talked about this a few times on my channel, and I'll link to the relevant video in the description if you want to know more. Cheryl also joked that there was an era of Roscoe's where they would invite the queens who won that week's challenge or got eliminated that week. They then watched the part of the episode when the queens were asked who should go home tonight and why, and several queens said Susie Toot because she's their biggest competition. Angeria said it was a quote cop-out to say that, and they didn't ask who do you want to send home because they're competition, they asked who deserved to go home, and there's no way Susie deserved to go home because she did so well. And you need to be saying people like Lana or Lydia because objectively they have the worst track records, and the others agreed. And because all of them said Susie or said their biggest competition, they all kind of quote avoided answering the question. They then watched the lip sync and they clapped for Lana because she won the lip sync. Naisha then said, quote, "We could rephrase that. We could say give it up for Lydia who gave away that lip sync," referring to the mishap that Lydia had with the scissors during the lip sync. Angeria said that before the scissors came out, Lydia was going to win the lip sync and she won't be convinced otherwise. And they all said that Lydia made a mistake using the scissors in the first place because it was awkward to watch. Angeria also said other people have done the scissor thing on Drag Race during lip syncs in the past and she doesn't think that it really worked, and so Lydia should have just never pulled out the scissors in the first place. They then moved on to the Q&A, and one of the questions was, when are the confessionals filmed, and after you get eliminated, are you suggested to say things that avoid revealing spoilers about the lip sync? They all said they filmed the confessionals the next morning after the elimination. Naisha then said, in terms of the other part of the question about the way you speak in confessionals to avoid spoilers and stuff like that, when you get eliminated, you're very emotional, and they ask you to film confessionals really soon after, which Naisha described as, quote, extra to what is required of you. And Naisha said, quote, "Does it look like I want to answer that right now?" Naisha then revealed that on All Stars 8, when she had to do the Fame Games runway for the Ice Queen, they made her record the voiceover audio for the looks right after she was eliminated, and Naisha said, quote, "Are you effing serious?" So Naisha just said something like, quote, "Ice, cold, brr," because, quote, "I was so mad," and the crazy thing is that that's what they ended up using in the show. Naisha said if you go back and listen to those runways, she, quote, "sounds like a B word" because she was mad. Cheryl said for her on UK vs. The World, you have to, quote, "live in that moment and take yourself back, even if it's already happened, so you know it can't be changed, like saying you hope someone doesn't pick your lipstick to send you home, even though you know they did." But Cheryl was thinking of the audience and wanted it to feel genuine, so maybe she was just trying to relive the moment and have some fun. There was also a very quick moment where Naisha said to make some noise for Lydia B. Collins because she got eliminated and everyone clapped. Then Naisha sort of sang and said, quote, "You haven't seen the last of me yet," and then continued talking, and there was a bit of a silence and a few people sort of started laughing. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but what I think this is referring to is that for the rumoured cast for the next All-Stars, which is All-Stars 10, Lydia is rumoured to be on that season. The reason is because she apparently disappeared from social media around June 2024, which is apparently when filming started. There is a full rumoured cast list for All-Stars 10 online, which I won't show here, but this is of course just a rumour and is not confirmed, so we're not sure if this is true or not. But there has been some talk online about Lydia being on All Stars, so I think maybe that's what Naisha was joking about, but this is just a guess and is not confirmed. They then had a question from last week from Candy Muse for Angeria, which was, how many drag queens has Angeria made out with, and who are they? Angeria joked that she does like drag queens, so she's made out with a few of them, and she can't say all of their names. But she did reveal that one of them was Blue Hydrangea from Drag Race UK, and Angeria joked that Blue has made out with most of the queens. Then, finally, they asked if Cheryl would ever go back to Drag Race for a fourth time. Cheryl said she would go back again and again, but she's only going to go back if she doesn't have to pay for her runway package, because she's still broke after having to pay for the last season, and she didn't win any money from the season. They also asked Angeria if she would go back for an all-winners season, and she said yes because she loves the show. But she said she could also win some actual money this time. Presumably what she meant is because All Stars 9 was a charity season, so the queens didn't actually win the prize because it went to charity. Naysha then asked if Angeria would still go back to All Stars if they had eliminations, and Angeria said yes. And they said that Angeria is a strong competitor, and they all clapped and cheered for Angeria. So there you go, there was the Roscoe's recap for RuPaul's Drag Race Season 17, Episode 11. What did you think of this week's acting challenge? And do you think that Lydia would have won the lip sync if it weren't for the scissors? Let me know in the comments. And I'd just like to give a special shout out to my newest Patreon members, Beck and Captain Aries, who joined in the You're a Winner Baby tier. Beck and Captain Aries, you are both winners, baby. If you'd like to get early access to my videos as well as have your comments featured in my Have Your Say videos and access to the exclusive Patreon chat, please check out my Patreon because it just costs a few dollars a month. It really helps support my channel and it really does make a huge difference to me being able to make these videos. So please check it out and I'll put a link in the description. And I'd just like to say thank you so much to all of my existing Patreon members. Your support really does blow me away every single time. I love the community I've built on Patreon and I love talking to you all on Patreon. So thank you so much for your continued support. It really does mean more than you know. Please make sure you like and comment on my videos because it really helps boost the video in the algorithm and promote it to more people. And please make sure you hit the subscribe button if you liked this video and you want to see more of them. Thank you for watching and I hope you'll join me again in a future video. Thank you, bye!